Good afternoon, good evening. If you're here in Los Angeles or California, it's afternoon. If you're joining us from the East Coast, it's evening. August 21st, 2020. Welcome to Black August Los Angeles's program on political prisoners that we have on this date. Before I get into all that this day entails, I want to let you all know that we'll be having some wonderful guests with us. A lot of great critical information that we will be sharing with you all. And I won't be doing the tech. So we should not have any technical difficulties. But August 21st, as you all should know, is the anniversary of when the Right Reverend Nathaniel Turner commenced his rebellion, his uprising in Virginia, his uprising against slavery. It is a momentous occasion. It is pregnant with revolution. It is also the date that the Haitian Revolution commenced armed struggle. On August 14th, they began with a religious, spiritual ceremony to fortify themselves. But the revolution in Haiti actually jumped off on the 21st, 1791, 21st of August. And for more recently, for our purposes, August 21st, 1971 is the date that the dragon, George Lester Jackson, came through the gates of San Quentin prison. Now, there are some who say that he was killed in his cell. There were others who say he went out in a blaze of glory. What we do know is that the San Quentin prison officials had been meaning to assassinate him for a while, and they succeeded in assassinating his body August 21st, 1971. And they've been trying to kill George's spirit every day since then. And thus far, they have failed, and they will continue to fail. George Jackson lives in all of us. And so again, I want to welcome you to Black August Los Angeles' program. We usually begin all of our programs with a libation, but before we do that, we are going to have a brief musical interlude. I know I need to make sure all of my stuff is together. In case everybody is not here just yet, come on in, grab a seat or grab your sandwich if you're not fasting with us, and we're going to get the program started in 1 second. Just bear with us.
Steel, 1966, Black Steel. Young cats caught in the twist. Black Steel, definition ride or die. Black Steel, yeah, boy, we doing it live. Black Steel, 1966, black steel. Young cats caught in the twist. We black steel. Definition ride or die. Black steel. Yeah, boy, we doing it live. The greatest threat to walk the yard of the streets. Call me Matulu Shakur, Rochelle McGee. I'm still representing the Angola 3. Resurrected field marshal of the BBB. I refuse to lose or be held in the cell. I ride with James Doc, Holiday, and WL. Nolan, Howard Tolan, all the Georgia's cadre. Steve Asimu Brownie and Chili Red from the Yay with James McClain and Luis Delamontes. Lawrence Black, Justice Tuwasi, and Willie Tate. See, shoot y'all lace me, guitar erased me. Paul Rett and Poncho from Quentin made me. Following the steps of Bill Christmas and Pennywell. From Soledad to Attica, we can't be jailed. I'm made to keep silent. Shackles on our brains. I command like the Mad Monk. Freddie Payne, a true soldier like Lumumba. And free the drum go. See me with Mumia, a brother Yogi Hukito. Sunni Adijimo and comrades on the street. Represent BG family. Black Steel. 1966. Black Steel. Young cats caught in the twist. We Black Steel. Definition ride or die. Black Steel. Yeah, boy, we doing it live. Black Steel. 1966. Black Steel. Young cats caught in the twist. We Black Steel. Definition ride or die. Black Steel. Yeah, boy, we doing it live. Soledad, San Quentin, Folsom to Attica. All around the world, more prisons than schools, y'all. What? Right, just look out for Brother Kamasi. Lace me.
That was the Black Panther Fugitives with Black Steel. Wanted to make sure we started this off right, in the right mood. And now we're going to have the libation. It's important that we do that on this day above all days, saluting our dragon and all those dragons, all those warriors who have stood tall in the California penal system. So I would like to bring on now a brother that we all know here in Los Angeles, a brother we all know, love, appreciate, and respect. Some of us know him as Brother Simon Ra. Others of us know him as Brother Lorenzo. So bring to you now for our libation, Brother Lorenzo Frank. Your mic is muted, brother. Unmute your mic.
Can y'all hear me now? I hope y'all can hear me now. Thank you. Again, it's an honor to be here representing Black August on this momentous occasion. We are an African people, and we cannot do anything of significance without paying honor and homage to our ancestors. And in order to do that, we must pour libations. So without any further ado, it is my honor to pour libation on this momentous occasion. So we pour libations to our first ancestor, that divine goddess, God idea in the universe, known by many names, but manifest in all things as all things. So to that first ancestor, we pour libation and we say Ashe. We pour libation to those first warriors that needed to prove to the world that we were the original people and we created the first civilizations along the Nile, Kemet, Nubia, Kush. So to those first mighty ancestors that created the first form of governance, the first civilization, to those great ancestors, we pour libation and we say Ashe. And we pour libation to those ancestors who one day found themselves kidnapped captured, shackled, stored on the bottoms of ships, and transported out of Africa. To those Africans who endured the worst atrocities to humankind, to those ancestors who would rather die and be slaves than they jumped ship, to those ancestors whose brave souls and their bones still line the ocean floor, to those mighty ancestors, we pour libations and we say, Ashe, Ashe, and we pour libations to those ancestors who once they reached these shores, those ancestors, they resisted, they agitated, they resisted, they agitated, they put glass in master's grips. To those ancestors, like Nat Turner, like Sojourner Truth, to those mighty ancestors, we pour libations. Ashe, to like Frederick Douglass, to those ancestors, we pour libations. Ashe, and we pour libations to those ancestors like Jacques Dessalines. Ashe, to those ancestors like Bookman. Ashe, to those ancestors like Toussaint L'Ouverture, to those ancestors that fought and died for our freedom and liberation. Ashe, and we pour libation to those mighty ancestors that continue to resist and fight for the freedom and liberation of our people. And we pour libation on this great August 21st of Black August. We pour libations to the great one, the dragon, George Jackson. We pour libation. And to the man-child, his little brother, we pour libation for Jonathan Jackson. Ashe. And we pour libation for those, the Soledad brothers. We pour libation, okay? We pour libation for Lee the Drum Go. Ashe. For John Cluchette. Ashe. We pour libation for W.L. Nolan. Ashe. We pour libation for Hugo Pinell. Ashe. And we pour libation for all those freedom fighters. For Fred Hampton, we pour libation. For Huey Newton, we pour libation. For all those great warriors that fought for our freedom and liberation, we pour libation. Ashe. And we pour libation for those ancestors who one day found themselves on these shores and they began to piece themselves back together. And they heard the beat of a drum, the words from a song, and they became the new Africans, the new Jolly La. So to those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe. And we pour libation to you, those that have picked up the torch and that will continue to fight for our freedom, for our liberation, by whatever means necessary. To those truth seekers, to those scholars, to those warriors, to those foot soldiers that continue to fight for our people, we pour libations to you. Ashe. And to those that continue to carry the torch for Black August. 365 days a year, not just in August. To those we pour libation. Ashe. And we pour libation for our children. To those that will continue our legacy, continue our culture, our heritage, and our fight for liberation. We pour libation to those children who knows who they are, who know that freedom and liberation and greatness is embedded in their DNA. So to those children, we pour libation. Ashe. And to their children. 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 Ashe. Oh. Give thanks.
Thank you so much, Brother Simon Ra, Brother Lorenzo. Appreciate you and all that you have been doing and all that you continue to do. It's important that we have a libation. It's important that we have someone such as Brother Lorenzo, who is known throughout the community for his spoken word. It's important to have the artists in our community represented. They are also warriors. And so again, I thank you and I salute you, brother, and all those who stood with you all these years in Lamert Park and all the other places, bringing the culture, wielding your pens as swords. Thank you so much, brother.
You're welcome.
And speaking of, we have another offering right now from one of the newer members of Black August Los Angeles. And by the way, in case I didn't mention it, as you can see on the screen, my name is Tonda Cesare Shimeringa. I'm a member of Black August Los Angeles. Right now, I'd like to bring on one of our newer members, Brother Naeem Muhammad, who also has an offering to get this program started correctly. Brother Naeem. Mute. Unmute, Naeem. Unmute. Can't hear you. Can't hear you. Can't hear you. I can hear me, but I can't hear you. Can't hear you. And it does not look like it's on our end either. Yeah, on our end, you're not muted. So you've muted yourself, bruh. Can't hear you. All right, we're going to have to come back. We're going to have to come back to you. And when we need a little interlude or break, we will come back to our brother. We are going to keep the program moving because we appreciate you spending your afternoon, your evening with us, and we don't want to take up all of your time. I do seem to be missing one of my guests, Mama Sukari, and I don't see her around. So unfortunately, we're going to have to keep it moving with another guest who had requested to go after Mama Sukari. But Mama Sukari is not here, so we just got to be flexible and keep it moving. So at this moment, I would like to bring in Mama Ayana Mashama. How you doing, Mama?
I'm good, Tandy. It's so good to see your face.
Thank
Uh,
you. It's wonderful to see your beautiful face.
Thank you. We are getting smoke in here. It's gotten worse during the day. So if you see me rub my eyes or I have a little cough, my windows are closed, but
Mhm.
it creeps
You're
in.
in Oakland, where there are fires raging throughout Northern California at the moment.
I'm on the edge of Oakland, Berkeley, and Emeryville. I'm a South
Mm-hmm.
Berkeley.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta
All right, Mama.
give props to the South Side.
Okay, we're gonna try to not to keep you too long.
Keep me as
Breath,
long as
breath
you
is
want.
important.
I'm
Uh,
here. I'm here. I'm
okay, we wanted to
on.
let we want to let our audience know Mama Ayana Mashama is a new African medicine woman. She is a wife, the mother of 7 children, 6 boys and a girl, a conscious new African Pan Africanist, a long struggler, one of the ones for the long haul. She's a founding member of the Black August Organizing Committee, founding member or co-founder of what we currently experience as this movement known as Black August. She is also a strategic advisor and founding member of the Bay Area chapter of the Malcolm X grassroots movement and the State of Black Oakland People's Assemblies. She has worked with the Jericho movement, the movement to free Mumia Abu Jamal, the international campaign to free Geronimo Gijaga and to free Mutulu Shakur. She is currently director at Healthy Black Families Incorporated, a Black woman led community nonprofit located in Berkeley, California. And as I mentioned earlier, she considers herself to be a new African medicine woman. But a lot of the medicine work that she has done and continues to do is with those people who are behind the walls. And again, she is a founding member of the Black August Organizing Committee, the parent organization, if you will, of Black August. So please, Mama Ayana, again, welcome you. We welcome you to tonight's program.
I am so honored to be here. I really am.
We are honored to have you. Thank you so much for participating.
Can you hear me okay, Tandy? How's
I
the
can hear
sound?
you.
Okay,
Hmm.
good.
Please go right ahead.
With
Your
where's my do you have a question for me or what is
what we talk.
we
we
talked
be
about me talking about Black August from my perspective, how it started on the ground,
right.
correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I was expecting guiding questions, so let me see. So I started my work with Black August. I was recruited into going into the prisons to visit by Shaka Athenin through my work at uh, Marcus Books. Ray Richardson was my mentor, and we had a Saturday school there, and Shaka was a printer there, and we became friends. And he, I was talking about things like misogyny and oppression and abuse and our health, and he's like, you should go into prisons and
Mhm.
speak there. So I started visiting. I started hardcore visiting at the Adjustment Center in Max B at San Quentin, and um, some of my first visiting is that I was. It was right around the time that Katari Gaulden was murdered in San Quentin. Some say, it was an accident, but research that we did afterward at the community law office let us know that they had probably compounded Qatari's injuries as well as committed what we call medical malpractice. We had people that came to us from San Francisco General, where I think he ended up and said that his injuries had been compounded and basically they let him die. So Qatari had just been murdered, and the brothers behind the walls were shaving their heads and wearing black armbands, and it was a Ramadan. So, in solidarity with Ramadan, they were fasting and abstaining from media and drugs and alcohol and um, studying all day and abstaining or doing their media fast. So that was the fall of August of 1978. And during the course of that year, we began to organize and plan to have Black August become come to the streets as a practice. It had been something that Qatari had talked about. From my understanding, he's the architect, the intellectual architect of Black August, and he had wanted to model it after what I believe they called Black October. And so we began to plan and strategize. And the next Black August, 1979, um, there was a cadre of us out on the streets that were practicing. Now, let me say historically that Black August was not called Black August, but there were demonstrations and focus on the Black prison movement, in specifically around the death of George Jackson, W.L. Nolan, James McClain, and other people and Jonathan Jackson. Uh, so this formalized, and this is when we called it Black August in 1979, and formalized a practice, a commemorative practice with the pillars, if you would say, um, of fasting, studying, abstaining, and educating and organizing around prisons and prisoners. And the fasting was happening from sunrise to sunset. And we abstained from watching television and or listening to commercial media or any media during the day, and then the evening we chose to watch uh, black movies or public media, non-commercial media, and then we most of us did not smoke or smoke herb or do any mind-altering drugs or alcohol, and we studied, and we actually had a study list that we created, and we also organized and educated around prisons and prisoners with special focus on the acts of resistance the historical acts of resistance that happened in the prisons and those that were our martyrs. Then the next year, as from 79 to 80, we began to become more focused and organized. And we came out with the our Black August newsletter and um, looking for the newsletter. Thought I had a copy here. I have it somewhere. And we also began to uh, have create our Black August study group, and we formerly had the Black August organizing committee. We had our first Black August event, August 1980, at Marcus Bookstore, and we also had what we called a Black August Festival, but it wasn't a celebration where we gave away food and books and clothes in East Oakland. We also began to create our cadres and our study groups, and that was when really Black August began to form. It was the next year that we began to look at adding our broader historical acts of resistance, like the Haiti Revolution and the formation of the Underground Railroad, to acknowledge that the organized practice of slavery, the slave ships landed, I think it was 1645. I apologize if I'm getting my historical dates wrong, and so on. In 1978, the MOVE had been had their house raised, and the MOVE Nine were uh, in prison, framed and imprisoned, and so that was one of the things that was driving us, the increased oppression as well as the continued rounding up and bringing in of our comrades and sisters and brothers that were participating in the Black Liberation Movement. So in San Quentin and in the California penal system, in the prisons of California, you had Panthers, you had of New Africa prisoners, you had Black liberation prisoners, Army prisoners, you had Black liberation prisoners, and you had uh, the the youth that came from Bunchy's Underground, who were trained but not acknowledged prisoners. Uh, we call them prisoners of conscience, but we know that the minute you stepped behind the walls and you aligned yourself with political ideals, values, and goals, or you were aligned or identified as a fighter or a person who had resisted in in particular with organized bodies or associated with political actions. These are our political prisoners. We can classify them according to uh, the UN, and that would be the excuse my phone, y'all. We're getting ready to hear an announcement. But on that note, that's who was organizing, and then part of the organizing process was bringing in our family and friends, educating our family, friends, our neighbors, and our communities. And that was one of the primary purposes of Black August, not just to honor the martyrs, George and Jonathan and W.L. Nolan, and in particular, Katari Galden, but also to bring to attention the conditions of our prisoners. If you read Sundiata Acoli's history of the Black prison movement, he talks about how after and during the civil rights movement, there began to be an influx of our people. And then how, as we began to resist the arrest and imprisonment and long-term imprisonment of those of us in our movement happened. And along with that was increased oppression and torture, degradation, and conditions that people wouldn't let their dog live under. But our people were experiencing the segregated housing units, the maximum security units, the uh, mental and emotional and physical torture and conditions. And so Black August was created as it was formalized into the streets as a vehicle to educate and organize our people. Over the years, um, as we organized under Black August Organizing Committee, um, the oppression became mounted against us. We had multiple court cases. We had, can y'all see that? And we had um, our homes raided, our neighborhoods targeted, our families persecuted. So we began to, we went underground. And within the prisons as well, um, the if you had Black August information or paraphernalia or anything that they thought associated with it, then you ended up going into the hole. And by 19, I would say 1985, um, Tandy, I had realized I had some pictures up to show, but 1985, can I share the screen or is my time up? So 1985, we had, so I'm just going to go along. Here's George Jackson. There's the Soledad Brothers. Um, this is a poem for Jonathan from Inside. There's Katari and Ugo.
Okay, Mama, we
Keith
can't
is
we can't see those.
oh, you
We
can't?
we I would. Are they on your
Okay.
computer or
Yes,
can
they
you hold
are.
them? Okay, yeah, we can't see those. Sorry.
Okay. That's all right. Another time. We'll have to
Okay,
figure it out. It's not allowing me to share, so I'm going to cancel. So
okay,
by
okay.
1985, a lot of the brothers and whose pictures I was about to show you were those that were still alive, because we also had people that were assassinated and murdered, um, those that were and disappeared, those that were still alive. Most of um, them ended up at in the shoe in Pelican Bay. Some were in Corcoran and some others, but most ended up in Pelican Bay and were there for what is this 30 years or so
Yeah, the
before they
secure
began to.
housing unit. They're
Yeah,
still there.
yeah.
Okay.
Some are out. Some are out. They formed the prison hunger strikes in California and began to organize, and many have been released. Finally, over the past 3 years, Hugo Pinell was one of those people. Um,
Hmm.
I wanted to talk about the New African Independence movement and our connection with Black August, because from the
Well,
beginning.
Mama,
Mhm,
if I can interrupt you for a moment,
mhm,
Mama
mhm.
Sukari is now on the line with us.
Okay.
But if you could stick around though, and we because we had planned on actually having you do a presentation, maybe ask some questions, but because we're
Mhm.
running a little bit behind, hopefully you and the other mamas can stick around, and then we can have a free for all if any of our viewers want to ask questions or make comments, if that's okay with you.
That's fine, and I'm honored to be in the same space with Makini and uh, Sukari and Allegra and all of the others who are here to honor. Thank you,
Okay.
Tanvi.
No, thank you, and I'm glad that you were able to bring in the repression that you all have suffered, because that's a lot that people do not know about. That even though it began in the California prison system and we represent for these brothers here in California, if they themselves are associated with Black August, they suffer more repression. So thank you
Right,
for
and
bringing
our
that in.
families. We have a
And the
whole
family.
history, yeah, in our communities. It's
Yes, ma'am.
amazing history.
Okay. So
I'm
just
sending you love
again,
to your
stick
son.
around, Mama. We want to go right now to Mama Sukari. Is Mama Sukari available? Hopefully she's on Jay Calhoun's computer. I know she was having some difficulty earlier.
I'm on a cell phone. Can you hear me?
Yes, I think we can see you. Well, yeah, we can hear you. Yes, ma'am. So
Okay.
Mama Sukari is a
I
long
was.
time Mama Sukar is a longtime supporter and advocate for political prisoners. In fact, that is how she met Katari Galden while she was doing legal work on cases of incarcerated Black Panther members, such as Geronimo Jijaga Pratt. She worked out of the Central Committee of the Black Panther Party, and she continues the legacy of the survival programs by her actions. Thank you so much, Mama Sukari, for joining us today.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. I don't really. I'm not that. What can I say? Mechanistic, but I'm learning.
It's all good, Mama. It's all good. So
And my
please,
son has me patched in now.
okay.
And so yeah. Go ahead.
We just heard Mama Ayana talking about the origins of Black August from her vantage point, and we wanted to hear about it from your vantage point also.
Oh well. Let's see. Greetings to everyone. I'm grateful to. I heard a lot of Ayana's, and I haven't seen her in years. And when I heard the name Ayana, I'm thinking of, okay, there's more than one Ayana, but I'm grateful. And she had a front seat of the beginning of Black August on the in the community and outside of prison, and it all came together around, I guess, 79, 78. My husband passed, or he was um, left unattended in San Quentin after an injury on the yard. And then they drove him around for hours
Sorry, Mama
before they
Sakari.
got him to a hospital. And on arrival, he was pronounced dead.
Mama
Tari was a
Sakari.
kind. Yes.
I didn't want to tell the audience. I wanted you to tell the audience who is your husband.
Oh, I'm sorry. My husband is. I'm the widow of Jeffrey Katari Galden, better known as um, Joka Katari. Um, Katari was in the maximum security, the SHU unit at San Quentin in Marin County. And so Katari entered prison at a young age, like most brothers. And his mother passed, and he wanted to go see his mom, and they refused him. And so it was the case. He wasn't being held in a maximum security, so he walked off and attended his mother's funeral. And upon being returned back to prison, then he had to serve that time that he had got on the first case plus a year. And during that time, he got shipped around to different prisons. But at the same time, he's an alert and astute young man. And when he passed, he was 32. And so he's very astute. He's very devoted and devout. And he got with the same kind of brothers that surrounded him. I don't know at which point he and George became in contact, but I know that he was very focused. Working on his case began when I after many years, hadn't seen Geronimo. I met Geronimo Pratt when he had to attend a mass meeting in Oakland. And so we picked him up at the airport and we took him to a secure site. And then we took him to the meeting. At that point, later on, Geronimo was arrested for an alleged murder around the same time that we picked him up. So I didn't get to see Geronimo from 68, 69 until 73. And when I went in to see Geronimo, I went in a legal visit with a friend to, let him know, find out how he's doing. And he said, well, I have a lot of visitors. So, but there's some people inside that we need to, have people come and see. And so he recommended Qatari. And so I said, fine, I would do that. I always had an issue. My first encounter with San Quentin, I was sent by the party to observe the treatment that they were doing Rochelle after the Marin Rebellion and or resistance. And oh boy, let me catch my breath. So we go in and we began working on the cases. Qatari had gotten a case at one prison for supposedly murdering a civilian worker. And so then he was transferred to San Quentin. And while he was at Quentin, it seems that he was set up in a particular way with a rookie. And I guess the other guards were calling the other guy his initiation. But they had him in a vulnerable position because Qatari, the prisoners that come out of shoot have chains on the ankle up to their wrists. Their wrists are chained, and then all that's connected to the waist. So whenever he leaves the shoe, this is the way he goes. And so the guard somehow, they shut the door, and Qatari immediately felt like there was something that was going to happen. So he used the guard as a shield. And when he did, he got a case for attacking a guard. But when we finally got that case to court, with Qatari's guidance, we would take a tape recorder in, and he would lay out some of the things that we should research, that we should look at. And by the time we got that case to trial in, I guess, late 76, we won the case. And it was heartbreaking to let him know or to relive it with him, how he had overcome, because the best thing he could do was rattle his chain, which was like heartbreaking to me, but he didn't think anything about it. Qatari told me about a lot of the brothers inside. Of course, at that time, I was going to the San Quentin 6 case as well as Geronimo Pratt's case. And there was a Billingsley case. This brother had his larynx snapped from the chokehold that was supposed to be outlawed. Definitely outlawed after Billingsley. They broke his neck, and so his family sued. When before Qatari passed, I was on a youth festival, on my way to a youth festival. I arrived at the youth festival on the 25th of July, and on the 1st of August, coming back from one of the meetings that I had attended, I was informed that he had passed. And while I was there, Afeni Shakur, who had been working on Geronimo's case, called me from New York to let me know and to find out how I was doing and how soon I could get away, and that they were prepared to help me go to each level or each step to get back. So I got back on the 6th of August, and we went to the coroner's office where he was still at San Francisco General Hospital. And then they had the body released. But Katari had told me of so many brothers, and we did our best to get as many visitors as we could up to the prisons. He told me a lot about the activities they did, and sometimes that he did like 23 hours in solitary confinement and 1 hour on the yard. And I think it was rare and not very often that he got to be around the other brothers because of their affiliation with George. Because George had just passed, I guess, 2 years before, in 71, just before I came back to the Bay Area. Katari talked about how they studied and how they worked out, and just about everybody's personality. Just some light stuff, some light and some enlightening. I knew how the San Quentin brothers operated. It was a pleasure. It was a lesson sitting in court every day. But in Marin County Court, I think like most courts, but definitely visible in Marin County Court, they would have observers, senior citizens, and they would come in these blue suits and red ties. And the women wore blue suits, but it was mainly men, and they would monitor the judges to see how they tended the case. But we got through that first case with Katari, and we were excited. Hugo Pinell played a major role in Katari's life. Little one, who I can't remember his name right now. It's his name of the ancestors, from the ancestors. The brothers, we had such camaraderie. I mean, the Six would come in, the San Quentin Six would come in sometimes reeking of tear gas because of some interaction that had happened between them and the officers. But there was always, and there had been, defense committees, and fundraisers. On one occasion, at one of the fundraisers, long before I met Katari, I met Johnson Jackson, and he was a very serious young man. And I thought, wow, too serious, too focused. I had no idea what he was thinking. And when I found out what had happened to him, I realized how deep his meditation was on what he knew to be the best way to release these brothers, that they must be freed. So we fought every legal battle we could. Katari had children, and he wanted to see his children. So with him and the brothers, they all got together, and he came out and he told me a way where we could have a confidential marriage. And all I had to do was follow certain protocols. And on a legal visit, I could bring in a minister. A confidential marriage is what they use if children are born out of wedlock, and to save the children, that wedding, that license is sealed, so no one knows the date. So he utilized that, and I couldn't tell you the penal code. I mean, not the penal, the civil code that would be now. But he gave me the outline, and I did the work. It was always like that. In every case that we had to work with Katari, he would do that. The Black August was started within the prison, but it was when it was transmitted. I think 79 or 80, like they said. I was still recovering. I was really, that took me aback, the way Katari had passed. And it took me a while to come out of that. But I continued working with different organizations in the community. And for the longest, I just had to pull back emotionally from the work that the Black August Committee group was creating. And I would hear it. They would let me know what's happening. And I stayed in contact with a few. We'd be missing each other on and off throughout the years. I've consistently worked with the tenants that the party set up. And so I've always tried to maintain connections, but I find myself more and more these days a little more isolated. But through measures like these technical advancements of communicating, I've been back and more involved, especially this year. I mean, there have been years before that I've participated, but mainly in LA, and always mostly around the holidays, what we call Kwanzaa, and any other platform that people were interested in. We tried to always encourage families to visit. Qatari and I got married so I could bring his children in without having much hassle. He had 3 children that were living in San Diego. Qatari and Geronimo had known each other, were from the same area in Louisiana. They were just a stone's throw away from each other's community, but they met up at San Quentin finally and built up a friendship. We brought so many people in working on Qatari's case, and Qatari, and definitely little one, Fela was his name. Fela, after Qatari died, caught a case, and he pulled me in as a witness, just so that he could see me and so that they would know, that there's a face and there's a family connected to this man that murdered. That's the best thing about Black August, is this connecting the face and the cases of these brothers and their circumstances in prison. The 13th Amendment had that clause in it where you're free until you commit a crime. And when you're Black and they set you free, you have nowhere to go. You'd have to be an extraordinary person and above and beyond that in order. And there were some that happened to. But this is when you went back to prison for cases like vagrancy or no ID, no work, no home. And they went back to the same plantations they had been released from. So that's the one thing about that 13th Amendment. It has that freedom, but unless you commit a crime, and that's why those prisons are so overloaded, and it's saying that we're less than a percentage of the population, but we're overrepresented in those prisons. So it's important to make sure that the family, and this is what Black August has done, is it made an awareness, and even more so this year, given this situation that we're in, which I mostly call the pandemic, is it focused on, and it not quite, because there's still brothers 80 and 70s that are getting sick in there, and there's no compassionate. I had a cousin die. We submitted tons and tons of letters. We submitted so many letters on behalf of young ladies that have been incarcerated, and they turn a deaf ear. But then you hear who they are letting go, and it's their friends or friends of somebody else that has given them enough campaign money. Black August brings awareness to the discrepancy of how people are housed in those prisons. You can go to college, UC Berkeley, for less than what is paid to maintain a prisoner. Those small communities house they're remote. It's hard to get to. I didn't drive, so if I didn't get transportation over, I would have to figure out a bus route. And a lot of times I would take my son, which was most of the time with me everywhere. and they had a place outside where we could leave the kids or we would take them in. And of course, Katari and my son, they were such a match together. He shared a lot with my son to this very day. We hold that relationship. I mean, it's hard not to. I don't share it with everyone because people still have the stigma about men in prison. When I first was asked to go see Rochelle, my thing was like, I don't want to go into prison, visiting someone that committed crimes against the people. But then what they made me understand was that there are political prisoners, and then there are political prisoners of war. And those are people that unknowingly are involved in something that they have no idea until they get into prison. And at that point, either they follow the prisons program or they follow a healthier program, like these brothers did. The only thing unhealthy about it was that they target these men. They target our comrades just like they targeted George.
Mama Sakari.
Stop right there, Mama. Stop right there. Stop right there, Mama. Stop right there, Mama.
Okay.
Mama Sakari, are you able to stick around for a few more?
It's up to my son. He's working on a project and he's typing me in.
Yes.
He's saying yes. Okay, we're going to get our other speakers in here, and again, hopefully we'll be able to have some good dialogue after people make their formal presentation. So we appreciate you, Mama. We appreciate your son. Please stick around if you are able to.
I will.
Okay, let's take a quick break. Let's see if Brother Naeem can bless the mic for us.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, we can hear you now. I can hear you now.
All right, cool.
Do your thing, brother.
So here we go. I don't have a name for this yet, but here it is. If you're black in the land of the free, your freedom of speech is instantly impeached. Your freedom of expression is at the oppressor's discretion. If the opposite of pro is con, then what is the opposite of progress? This Congress that we wholeheartedly trust conspires against us, locks us up to take away our right to revolt. That's why Asada said, I gotta go. Nat was put in a hearse and made into a purse. Bobby was black and educated. That was already 2 red flags. So he was gagged and not allowed to speak or digress because he did not impress white America. But yet we still trust the same people who enslaved us to liberate us. Prison is not just a structure. It is also a state of mind. They give us education that keep us on the plantation. In this game, we're all political prisoners. But it's up to you. Are you going to stay in a rage and never find the key? Or set yourself free? That's it.
Just so you know, Brother Naeem, we heard you, but your face disappeared until right now.
Oh, did it?
So, I'm going to have to work with you on that technology, bro. But we appreciate that offering, though. We appreciate that offering. Thank you so much, Naeem. And we're going to keep it moving. It is hot. I know I'm hot, and I ain't got no fires raging around me. So I know my sisters in the Bay Area are hot. So we don't want to keep them waiting any longer. Want to ask Sister Makini Iyapo to join us now. Sister Makini is the wife of Comrade Yafeo Iyapo, who is a co-founder of the George Jackson University and the W.L. Nolan Mentorship Program. Comrade Makini has been an activist in her own right for several years, fighting for the release of her husband and other secure housing unit or SHU prisoners for decades. She has shown constant support, practice, and demonstrated the tenets of Black August ever since she first learned them. She was also a very close comrade, sister, and friend of the late Peggy Adama Kamban Carter, who was the chairwoman of the Black August Organizing Committee. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, Sister McKinney.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Thank you. Greetings, everyone. Wow. So this is just, I keep hearing everybody talk about the difference, the presence that Black August has had. And I can tell you from my orientation from Black August was probably in the early 80s, but this year it has been significant in terms of just the widespread coverage and just the activities. And in spite of this pandemic, we've still been able to gather and get information out there and coordinate. And so this has been a monumental thing. And I'm excited that I believe that it's going to continue to happen. I mean, we are taking it from inside the prisons, and it's a lifestyle. I mean, and that's what we want. I mean, the disciplines that were instilled in us by Comrade George and Katari were so instrumental in the brothers being able to endure the shoe. The vision that Comrade George and Katari had in terms of the oppression and what they needed to prepare themselves for, and the discipline that was instilled in them and became part of Black August, but that they lived daily was, I think, a catalyst in allowing them to be able to come out of the shoe still standing upright. And that was amazing because what they endured for over 30 years is unheard of. I think that maybe the only thing that we could compare it to would be like the Holocaust. I mean, because there was an intent when this was done. There was an intent to destroy them. There was an intent to divide them. And at some level, they succeeded. And so now we are just trying to keep the information out there, keep them uplifted, keep them empowered, particularly as we are now facing the pandemic. And so it's almost like, I mean, we started having conversations when it first hit the prisons, comparing the outbreak in prisons, what it would look like on those cruise ships. And, they were having all these hearings and they were like, no, it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. And now here we are where it's just, it's running rampant inside the prisons. And I mean, the numbers are increasing daily, and it's almost like our brothers and sisters are waiting to die. It's like a slow death. And since there's no clear indication on how this disease spreads, there's really not a whole lot that we can do except for just keep fighting and keep, but not to digress on that, but that is just like, so, in the midst of all of that, we are still honoring Black August. I mean, we've lost so much culturally. So to have this that's ours, that nobody else can take from us, and it's based on something that we can control, we can grow, and it was based, as of everything else, on the back and the lives of brothers and sisters that have sacrificed their lives. So as we continue to commemorate, sometimes people say celebrate. We don't celebrate. We acknowledge. We commemorate. We study. We sacrifice. We work on our discipline, and I always tell myself, because it's not an easy journey. This is one of the first years, even though I've been a part of this for over 45 years, that I've really been like, okay, I'm going to do this. But that's because I've had brothers outside here going shoulder to shoulder. Like, I know brothers that are doing Black August that don't drink anything. They rinse their mouths out at 3 o'clock in the morning, then they don't do anything. I can't do that. So I'm drinking water. I have drank smoothies, rinse my mouth out with mouthwash, different other little things just to try and keep the discipline. But when you fast, it allows your mind to elevate to a level where then that thought process is just like where it needs to be for us to rise and be able to face and invest in ourselves and become rejuvenated so we can deal with everything that's continuing to confront us, because there's so much going on with all of the racism and all of the uprisings and the diseases and the death, and it's just a lot to have to try and process. And so we just have to just be solid in our foundation in order to be able to face that. And so when I hear Mama Ayana, I knew of her long before I ever met her. And so like the brothers talk about her, like, they said no matter wherever they went in the prisons as they were moving them around, like her and her sister, God rest her soul, made a way for them to have everything that they needed. And so, when you're in this fight with these brothers, wow, I want to say it's an emotional turmoil for you because you don't know but you're still trying to make a way and you don't have that connection. You can't call them. You have to rely on different types of mechanisms to know that they're okay. And so you have that on you. And still, if you have if you have children, you're trying to mom. If you're working, you're trying to work. And so just to have that. And so for these sisters to have, um, excuse me, to been able to endure all of that in the midst of all of that was just phenomenal. And so Sister Sakari, God bless you. When she talks about her husband, I was telling her that we wanted people to see Katari not as just the comrade, but as the father and as the husband. And so listening to her talk of him is just so sweet and so beautiful. But I wanted her to share that when they finally took Katari out of the hospital to the hospital, how they drove him, excuse me, around to several hospitals. And nobody would accept him because of the way that the caravan was presenting itself. Um, God, I'm sorry. Um, anyway, and so just the fact that he had to endure that and is just, and they are still the unfortunate instances, the medical neglect and the deprivation and the inhumane treatment that they are being subjected to. They are still doing that today. So just God bless her that she's still around and still, I could not imagine him having to endure everything, that she's had to endure. My husband was telling me today that he's in Tracy, he's in his 45th year, and he lost consciousness twice yesterday. And since we don't know how this COVID is transmitting or what the symptoms are, what that looks like, we don't know what that looks like. So it's like, we had a brother the other day, he got taken to the hospital. I mean, so just to have to endure all of that. And so some of it I think could be attributed to the fasting and the programming that they're doing for Black August, but also just the strain of just, to have to suppress all of your emotions. I mean, so then it manifests and it comes out, because they're afraid, and so that's what I was telling to one brother. I know that you're afraid because we don't know what this looks like, what's going to happen. I mean, and you feel really helpless, and so just for us to, and so what I've been able to share with them, and this is an example of that, is like just know that we are out here, we stand strong for you guys, we're fighting for you guys, and you're not alone in this fight, and we are going to continue to fight, and we're going to, because this is unacceptable, and we have to just reach out to the community. Like they're creating a pipeline for our babies with this prison industrial complex, and they do that like in the early ages of when they start labeling them in terms of education and disciplinary things. They are creating a pipeline to send them to prison. So not only are they making it the pipeline for our babies, and then they're housing our men because of the money and the financial, because they are not the worst of the worst. They've demonstrated that. But we have to get the community to see them through our lenses, and everybody can be redeemed. And I think that's one thing that Comrade George and Katari, instilled in the brothers, like taking them from a criminal mentality to a revolutionary mentality. And people say revolution, that's change. They're changed. They're redeemed. And because some of them came at such a young age, they can't be, their brains had not developed. So to hold them accountable for to put adult values on childhood issues, not to minimize what happened, because people did lose their lives, but they need an opportunity to redeem themselves and live their lives. So I'm just I don't know if I talk more about anything, but I'm just so honored to be in company with you sisters. And give thanks.
Thank you so much, Mama McKinney. And again, when we say the SHOE program, we've been mentioning that all night. We're talking about the secured housing unit, which is basically solitary confinement, which is basically torture. So it's the prison within the prison. But thank you, Mama McKinney. If you can stick with us for a few more minutes,
Absolutely.
we would greatly appreciate it. We want to go to our next speaker at this moment, Sister Allegra Taylor. She is the daughter of the late political prisoner and freedom fighter Hugo Yogi Bear Pinell, who was a close comrade of Joker Katari and also a member of the San Quentin Six. Sister Allegra continues to fight and advocate for the release of political prisoners, especially California prisoners. She's very active in community organizing and a member of a number of various human rights and prisoner support groups. Sister Allegra, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Oh, you're muted. Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
I thought I took all the
Yes,
buttons off.
there you go. We can hear you now. So again, thank you so much for being with us here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. So we wanted you to also talk about your experiences, your from your perspective, your vantage point, not only Black August, but also who your father was.
So
Okay.
I shared earlier in another meeting that, Black August has a different meaning for me. I shared how Black August represents pain and power. So I say that because of who my dad was. My dad, my dad, my dad was quite a character. My dad was a leader. My dad was committed. He was held in solitary confinement for 46 years. He spent 51 years in the California Department of Corrections. We're still waiting for trial date in regards to his assassination. My grandmother is still alive, and we're still waiting for justice. My dad mentioned to me, he knows the work that I do, and he really preferred that I stuck with working with youth, at-risk youth, and I would think that that's because he went into prison as a youth. He started off in juvenile in San Francisco, and then he at the age of 19 went to prison, and he never came home. So in his memory, in his honor, I try to support returning citizens. We've been housing returning citizens since 2005, along with veterans. And I've been a community advocate since my early 20s. Started advocating on behalf of our returning citizens and veterans when I found out about the homeless population with our returning citizens and our vets. My dad was called the spirit of the movement. He was unmovable in his belief. He would stand by his belief till his death, and no one could change that in him. I often wonder, what he would be doing now if he were here with me. Of course, August is a bit of a challenging month because it is the month that I have to remember that this is the month that they took him from us. And that's a little bit painful at times. So I'm up and down with my emotions in the month of August. I try not to allow my emotions to overcome me, taking me further than I want to go, keeping me longer than I want to stay. Depression is real. I often think about my father spending so much time in solitary confinement, AKA the SHU, and how he managed to have as much compassion and love and instruction, humanity for me after spending all those years in solitary confinement. And that is because he practiced the beliefs. He practiced what they believed in, and he practiced it routinely on a daily basis. It was a lifestyle. He became the new man that he said he worked to be. And that's the only way that he was able to survive, along with much prayers I'm sure went up by my grandmother and many others. I often lean on my dad's strength in the month of August, thinking if he could survive 47 years in solitary confinement, then I can survive the month of August. The work that I do with young people and bringing awareness to the traps that are laid up for them it's not new work. I've been a youth worker for many years. I'm just came out of retirement and got back in the mix after my dad left. So one of the ways that I try to focus in the month of August deliberately is focusing on at-risk kids, because I think that that's where I can be most effective. Although it can be a little bit more challenging today, especially now with COVID, and I'm unable to make that personal touch where we're dealing with them directly one-on-one. Now, a lot of things that we're doing with them is through Zoom, which can be a bit of a challenge today. But the struggle continues, and we have to continue the work by any means necessary. And so if it means that we have to become more technologically wise, then that's what we do in order to reach this next generation. I'm so grateful for all of the elders on the phone with me today and on the screen today. Thank you so much for your work, for your commitment. Thank you for setting the example for me to follow in the continued work that still needs to be done. I'm just grateful to be even in this space with you all. It brings healing to my soul, to my brokenness in the month of August. And I'm really grateful for Black August LA. That became my home after my dad was murdered. And it's the second year that I wasn't able to be there, and I'm sure looking forward to next year. So I'm really glad to be in this space. Thank you so much for letting me share.
Thank you so much for sharing with us, sharing your story, and sharing the pain, because a lot of times we don't talk about the pain. And that's something that's very, very real. You know, a lot of times I think we become misguided. I think we allow the horrors of white supremacy, the rigors of struggle to throw us off guard, and we think that we have to be hard all the time. And so, one of the things I like to tell people, we need to humanize our heroes. We need to humanize our warriors, not for white people, but for us. We need to humanize them for ourselves. So I thank you so much for sharing that. And I thank all of the sisters, all of the mamas, the panelists. We want to take a quick music break. And if that's okay, for everyone who has been able to stick around, we're going to come back after this quick music break and chop it up with hopefully Mama Ayana, Mama Makini, Mama Sukari, and Mama Allegra. And if you have any questions or comments you would like to share with us, we will try to get them in. But let's go to those, to our sisters. I forgot the name of the song, but let's take a quick music break and come right back.
Island woman rise, walang makakatigil. Brown woman rise, alamin ang iyong ugat. They got nothing on us, nothing on us, nothing on us, nothing on us. Island woman rise, walang makakatigil. Brown woman rise, alamin ang iyong ugat. They got nothing on us. Nothing us, nothing on us. Isang bagsak. Yo, fuck the story arc if it don't involve no matriarch. Some mothers work from the ground up, they craft in air like ATR with the butterfly sleeves. Kaka-Philippine yan, na pag nagsalita mga banat ay bala. Wag magtaka kung ako ay makatabulok na sistema. Kurakot sa pera, bagsak, but we put in our heart into darkness. They putting these fix in the office. Or you thinking you schooling, but you hella lost, cause you best be the boss while I top this. But look at my ate, she moving so cold. Can't hold a candle to her when she glow. Flick at the wrist with that ilaw she hold. Panago sa ilaw, she dripping and gold. We pulling up in a jeepney. All of my soldiers greet me. Hand me bandanas and pull back my hammer. It's warfare when you see me. Spin you a lot for my country. I live and die for my country. The pig dude on the low for my country. They got evil plans in the devil's hands, but I don't pray cause I organize. They got new ways to impose strength, but I teach mine how to mobilize. We don't fight for the money, for the greedy, for the white man. All we want is our freedom and the right to live on our motherland. Island woman rise, kakatigil. Brown woman rise, alamin ang iyong ugat. They got nothing on us, nothing on us, nothing on us, nothing on us. Island woman rise, walang makakatigil. Brown woman rise, alamin ang iyong ugat. They got nothing on us, nothing on us, nothing on us. Isang bagsak, goddess of guerrilla warfare in every lifetime. We don't take no shit except an oppressor's lifeline. If you step out of your line, I will protect what's mine. Kahit merong rosaryo, sino magliligtas sa'yo? Puro dugo, pugot ulo, mulat sa dagat hanggang mundo. Proclaim it was ours, the high and the low. These women are gods, you already know. We're deeper than water, they're running a village. The river runs red, you'll be dead in a minute like Nevis Fernandez. Have you beheaded? Fuck with my tribe, quickly regret. Abani ko sa kamay, at isang mikropono sabay. At ang tapang ko, kaya nang inay. At halimaw nang sumasabay. Mga bara nyo lahat sablay. Mga rappers na puro bangkay. Tinamaan ko lahat patay. Kaya walang mag-iingay. I got that Filipino phenotype. Kayo mag-i-mestizo white. But give me that moreno like that Rufio Aquino type. My lolas they be speaking like those Bali songs and bolo knife. I breathe the ether, need no hype. Two tongues are sharper with the mic. I need no in my history like from a narrow readers weaving tight. They thieve until when peaceful might just turn to see no light. Hacienda like Aquino right. Rodrigo vigilante type. They kill my peoples left and right. With smoking mirrors fill the night.
So let it be known, if you don't already, Pinays have always been part and parcel, if not imperative and critical to the struggle. Filipinas are no strangers to wielding our own power. Of all the privileges that exist in this world, none of which you may be a benefactor of, there is at least one you bear, and that is the privilege of having been born a Filipina. Your DNA contains building blocks made from the mud of over 500 years of resistance and survival, and when you are ready, sis, we'll be right here.
Island woman rise, walang makakatigil. Brown woman rise, alamin ang iyong ugat. They got nothing on us, nothing on us, nothing on us, nothing on us. Island woman rise, walang makakatigil. Brown woman rise, alamin ang iyong ugat. They got nothing on us, nothing on us, nothing on us. Isang bagsak.
I needed to insert some more culture in there from our Pinay sisters, Filipina sisters. That was us. The refrain, they got nothing on us. That was Ruby Ibarra, Rocky Rivera, Classy, and Faith Santia. Thank you so much for that offering. So let's see now if we can bring in the time we have left, I got 6:24. Let's see if we can bring in some of our sisters for a little bit of a round table. Chop it up. I know some of y'all haven't seen each other in a while, so I can imagine what that's gonna be like. But yeah. And where is Mama Sukari? Where is Mama Sukari? I see Mama Sukari.
Yeah, I got someone told me to remind folks of how when I went to visit the prison. They didn't let me into many prisons, but we went to oh boy, oh my God, we went to this one prison, Soledad. We went to Soledad prison to do a program from one of the radio stations in Northern California, KPFA. And we went in, and Katari told me, when you get there, tell Brother G2 and the comrades I send my regards. And so somehow me and two other sisters end up taking pictures with at least 50 or more brothers that were just all in love with Katari. The brother Katari, and I was like overwhelmed because, I mean, it's different going into a visiting room, but being on the yard where you're outnumbered, it gets a little uncomfortable. But those brothers were like our shield. And everywhere I went, and they knew that I had come there with a word from Katari, they were very warm. It was like, I mean, it's something that you don't really experience in a prison, you know, where they're trying to isolate people. But I greet all my sisters. Allegra, oh man, her father was such a charmer and such a diplomat and such, oh boy, such the kind of like the father of everybody, you know, but everybody tuned in with their own energy. And McKinney, oh my goodness, this young sister is phenomenal. I really enjoy interacting with her. I can't wait when we can all meet. Ayana, I haven't seen since, oh my God, I think I left the Bay Area in '89. I might have seen her a little before that. And I still got those earrings you made me, Ayana. I'll release.
So I see a lot of greetings from a lot of people in who are watching. I don't know if anyone has got any questions, but I wanted to go back to something Mama Ayana brought up, and maybe you all can chime in also. Mama Ayana was talking about the repression that many members, many of the brothers who had been inside, standing with George, who laid the foundation for Black August. Once they got out, they were still targeted, and many of the families were targeted and faced repression also. Did that happen to you, Mama Sukari or McKinney or Allegra? If you don't mind, if you can talk about it.
So I don't know what year this was, but after my dad died, I was having a conversation with my stepbrother Blaine, and he shared with me about some rough times that they went through, and they had to go into safe house, and the Panthers had to guard them during some of that time. After George was murdered, but. So I think that there was some of that gone on. You know, I don't remember. I was too young. Just only what I heard.
Yeah, for me, this is Sukari. For me, it was we did a fundraiser one time in particular for Qatari, and I had my son with me, and we would do some of Qatari's poems. And as I went out to check on someone or to the bathroom or whatever, this man stepped to me and called me a troublemaker. And luckily, I guess there were eyes on him because he moved away quickly. But yeah, your phones click, you know, you get someone else's messages, you know, you get all kind of crazy things happening. Where you live, things are not in the right place, especially when I spent time in New York. Matulu was under surveillance, and I spent a lot of time going back and forth between Matulu and Phoenix and other members in New York, and his place was always I was always moving, so wherever I went, my eyes were open and I kept space, but basically we had people wherever we went to watch out for us. So that's how I got by a lot of it.
Hi, this is McKinney. I've been followed, harassed, and with intimidation. And I really have a problem, like minding my own business. So I've seen them kind of like intimidate, like younger sisters, like, oh, you know, your husband's here because he did something wrong, things like that. I'm not. I even start getting paranoid. Like, you know, you see cars sitting outside your house, and you know, like, why is that car sitting out here? You almost want to go up, you know, and you know, because you know we have jobs and stuff. You know, I do have concerns about, you know, just putting myself out there, you know, because, you know, like they will, you know, they unfortunately, you know, society has conditioned us to be ashamed. So we don't, you know, you don't want to say, you know, when people ask me, well, where's your husband at, you know, and I'm at a point in my life now, like he's in prison. You know, I'm not, you know, either, you know, and so I was telling Ayana today, like I'm moving toward getting a job where I don't have to create an image. You know, what you see with me is what you get. But I want to just say a couple of things real quick. Um, in prison, you know, when I used to visit San Quentin, North Block,
Right.
it was the very first time. You know, I was 22 years old, and I'll be 60 in a few months. And it was the very first time my husband was a gang member, and so you know that was a whole different culture. It was the very first time that I saw men genuinely love each other. I mean, and willing to die for them, and I mean the sharing and the camaraderie. And even now, you know, I mean, like my mom recently passed August 25th. God bless her soul. Will be a year, and so I'm just, if she had to leave, I'm glad she left in August. You know, but so this is my family, and I mean, just the love and the outpouring and the support and the concern that they share. I want people to see that and recognize it because it's very, very real. Um, there are, you know, we talked about a lot of the brothers that have passed on, but there's brothers that are still here. They that are still in the fight. You know, like the program that Shaka put out in 2018. I mean, was phenomenal. Um, you know, I met Shaka via, and he was kind of cantankerous, and I had to just take my ego out. But the work that he did and the program that he did and his commitment, um, is parallel to none. And so, I kept trying to thank him for that, and I wasn't able to. The other thing is, we've talked about a lot of brothers, and I wanted to mention Mata. Um, Mata
Yeah.
was a man amongst men. He was really just phenomenal. I met Mata through Shaka. He had just came out. He didn't know how to create an email. He didn't know what an email was. And watching him navigate, in the 2.5 years that Mata was out, he lived longer. He lived his life, and he lived it from a space of just generosity from the heart. I mean, he was reaching out. He was giving. He was just doing the work. He didn't have the resources. He would walk. He would ride the bus, but his heart was in the right place. And I remember when they did the program in East Oakland in 2018, he tuned into that sister energy, which was so refreshing because he was like, well, I gotta, they had the breakout sections on gardening and other things, and he was like, I gotta go and support the sisters. It was just so powerful. We talked about Fela. Like, Fela, bless his heart, he had cirrhosis of the liver, and he loved Qatari so much, and how we had to fight to get his remains. And then lastly, my sister Adama. I met Adama in 1984. I came up to the Bay Area to work in Walnut Creek, and my husband was in San Quentin, and I wasn't conscious, and so I was like, well, I'm gonna go visit while I'm working. Really not, I'm still in the mind if he just goes and does the right thing, he's gonna come home. But the lessons that I learned, and I try and give back just in time and conduct and how to be real sisters. We see a lot of. I don't watch reality shows at all because they always show sisters at each other and not respecting each other, not having that genuine love, and that really disturbs me because I happen to know. I mean, this is an example of it that sisters really know how to be sisters. Like, we can love and we can support and encourage and lift up, and that's what I've seen that, I've experienced that, and it's been very real. And Adama demonstrated that with me. Adama gave her life. I watched that sister sacrifice. Brothers, comrades would get out, they'd come stay with her. She'd give them their car, her car. I mean, whatever it looked like, she made it happen. Ayana, the same thing. I mean, specifically, as we were planning Black August, Northern California, because I'm from Los Angeles, but I recently relocated after my mom passed. Um, uh, Fati was adamant that he wanted us to interview Ayana. He said because that Ayana, Maya Muna, who's Ayana's sister, no matter where they were, they made sure that they found them and made a way and made sure that they had everything they needed. And I mean, we're talking over a 30-year time span. And so just, just giving thanks to everybody that has been through this fight, because there's nothing glamorous about this. I tell people all the time, I don't have no cheering squad. I have to be true to 100. There's not anybody telling me, "Oh, stay with Yafael." I mean, I don't have people saying, "Oh, you still with him?" I mean, people say, "You still with him?" Like for real, it is not a cakewalk.
Let me
And
let
you
me
know,
jump in
so
for a moment.
it's a lot. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Let me jump in for a moment, if I may. Before we get to Mama Ayana again and Mama Allegra, we have a special guest that we need to hear from. One of the brothers who is currently behind the walls. We wanted him to be a part of our program because we are serious about support of California's political prisoners, the ones who many people are not aware of. Brother Jeffrey Hazim Burks entered prison in 1974 at the age of 18. In 1976, he became involved with political study, leading to advocacy for prisoner rights, justice, and reforms. That eventually led him to solitary confinement. And while there, he was framed for a murder that he did not commit, but he was convicted despite factual evidence and witnesses who stated he was not involved. After 47 years of incarceration, he's still fighting for his freedom. And Brother Hazim wanted to let us know about the ravages of COVID-19 right now in some of the California prisons and the purposeful neglect by the prison authorities. Brother Hazim, are you there?
Hazim, can you say something? Can you hear?
Brother?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, brother.
All right. Hey, thank you, sister. And I thank all you brothers and sisters out there for this opportunity to bring awareness to the COVID virus scourge inside prison. We always say when we're speaking about society that prison is a microcosm of society. What goes on outside of society is almost doubled inside of prison. And that is to say, the number of people affected by the COVID virus has been devastating inside these prisons. I don't know how much information is being passed out through the media, but I know here in California, there's a lot of people talking about it and trying to make changes. But what we see in here is that the changes are going to be limited after everybody stops focuses on it, after so many people have gone on and do other things in life that eventually people are not going to be focused on what's happening inside these prisons. So I just want to make everybody aware of what we experience here at this prison. In May, mid-May, we got word that the virus was on one of these yards. The administration took action. They started testing everybody, taking our vital signs. I tested positive. My temperature was 102 on May 17th. I didn't have any other symptoms of the virus, being contaminated, but they put me in isolation. And now with being placed in, and as said, you're over there with no infirmary, with no property, nothing there to distract your mind from what's going on. I'm hearing people coughing around me. It sounds like guys that are really, really sick. That same night that I went into the isolation process, they came and took a guy out of the hospital, put him in a wheelchair. It's pretty bad off. So living in that situation, experiencing that hearing guys on the brink of death was bad enough as it was. But the number of people that you came to bring in, I wasn't aware at the time how many had jumped. But on May 17th, before he took my vital signs, we heard there were probably 2 people who had been infected over on another yard. By the time that I was tested positive on May 21st, the number of positive infections here at this prison had jumped to 169, and that's 2 to 169. So that gives you an idea of how fast that virus had spread around this prison. They talk about social distancing at prison. That's impossible. I don't care what prison you're in, where they have you, unless they got you isolated in a dungeon all by yourself. The practice of social distancing is impossible, especially inside these prisons where they have dormitory living or what they call cube living, where the 12 to 10 guys, and your bunk is maybe 2 or 3 feet away from the next person. You're living in the same atmosphere, you're living in the same situation, you use the same toilet facility, the same shower area, and you stand in line. Everywhere you go is to stand in line with a guy, 2 or 3 feet away from you. So social distancing is impossible. So controlling the virus inside prison is impossible, especially in an overcrowded prison like we have here, where there's housing, in one housing unit, there are about 230 guys in there. And after I was taken out of isolation and put over on a facility, they call this housing unit a quarantine unit, but half of the housing unit, B side, were guys who were negative, who who had not been infected with the virus. So they brought 100 of us from the infirmary and from B yard and C yard and placed us in this housing unit on one side, A side. The other guys on the B side were not infected. And how they did not expect those other prisoners to become infected, not to become infected, was just beyond my imagination. The way that they did this, they claimed they were placed in isolation and we couldn't go over to the other side, and the other prisoners couldn't come on our side. But again, as I stated earlier, we were all breathing the same air, so there was no way that they were preventing that virus from spreading. And further action taken to stop the spread of the virus was totally opposite. The Saturday that I got over here, May 23rd, and that same evening I was told by a few guys that I met before that they were being moved after having had their tests done, but no results had been sent back. And there were 9 of them. And 5 of them had already tested positive. The other 4, their test results had not come back. The administration had decided to move them to facility B and the facility C. Again, 5 of them are already tested positive, and 4 of their tests had not come back. And the 4 tests that had not come back, those guys believe that they were also infected. So the administration is clearly and your telephone number returned and recorded. They're clearly making the move to spread the virus further around this prison. And it was just obvious to us that they had no concerns about trying to contain the virus. They were just running around and just one part, the custody and the medical didn't know what either one was doing. So they just moving prisoners around. And as a result, that was on Saturday. Saturday evening when they moved those 12 guys to facility B and facility C. Monday morning, they were bringing them all back. They're positive, their tests had come back positive, and one part of the administration is trying to determine how they get moved over there. When the guys are protesting, they're telling them, hey, our tests ain't going to come back. But the administration had no concerns, no regard, no protocol in place to stop the spread of the virus. They were just moving guys around and making. Yes, sir.
Let me ask you a question. At its height in Chuckawalla, how many prisoners were infected with the virus, and are you aware of the number of deaths that have occurred statewide?
Currently, you're just prison. You have 60 seconds remaining. Currently, at this prison, only one guy has tested positive in the last 2 weeks.
No, at its height, how many were?
Say that again, brother?
At the apex, at the height of the exposure in Chuckawalla, what was that number?
It was 996 out of a population of 3,000. I think it was 996 that tested positive here in this prison at one point. And it got towards that was an apex of it, but overall there was like 1,156 total. Those came at different times. And he get ready to cut me off of it. So I just want to again just point out to people that the COVID virus in here is not going to end. It's going to continue to spread as we hear other prisoners are catching fire with the virus. There's no containment. There's no containment for the risk. There's no protocol in place to save our lives. In fact,
So that was Brother Hazim, who's in Chuckawalla State Prison, telling us about the ravages of COVID-19 currently underway in many of the California prisons. His time was up, but we appreciate him coming in. Our time is going to be up in about 15 to 20 more minutes. I want to bring the sisters back in. Allegra, you were stating as we were listening to Brother Hazim's presentation that we need to start making phone calls to the warden. We should do some mass calls, is what you were saying. One of our commenters said, what would you say is the most important thing or things that allies can do to be supportive? So let's get Mama Ayana back in here, Makini, and Mama Sukar if we can.
Hi, I'm working on an initiative that we can connect with all prison reform organizations throughout the U.S. because people are doing rallies. That's like an inconvenience. They're being a nuisance. We have to inconvenience them and make them take notice and make them pay attention. We have to do that by blocking freeways, going to the homes of the warden, standing on bridges and then having media coverage and holding CDCR accountable for the things that they said that they were going to do. They said that they were not going to do transfers, but that's how this all happened. You know, they started transferring infected people from Chino to San Quentin, and then they had an outbreak. And then they did it to Delano. Now in Folsom, they have them on tents. Lancaster, and so they are going against everything they said. And the warden, the Secretary of State, Ralph Diaz, gave this little diatribe about how he was concerned about the community and the families. He don't give a damn about the communities. If he don't make them hold accountable to their words, we are tax-paying people. They have to listen to us, and we have to let them know. So I am trying to structure this. Anybody want to get on board? I want to plan it for September the 9th, the Attica uprising, and we just cannot stop. They are prepared to let them die. This brother told me the other day. I talked to my sister today, and I told her something happened to me. The Cree made me do this. So they are already kind of anticipating, that this is not going to end well for them. I mean, look at Katrina. How when Katrina struck, they left them in there to drown. I was in Pelican Bay many years ago. They had a tsunami warning, and they not only locked the electrical doors, but then they padlocked each cell, and then they were prepared to leave them in there and die. They don't care. And so even the judges, when listening in these hearings, one of the judges said, by them not being allowed to social distance, is that a violation of the right amendment? Why should, that's part of the whole civil death thing. Why are they in a different class? They're human, they're men.
Right.
What they do to them, we would go to jail for doing to our dog. And so we have to be steadfast. It's not a color thing, it's a human rights thing, and we have to make them be accountable.
I'm with you on that, Makini. I think it's very important to organize and activate across our lines, to organize our allies as well, to move across communities, because as you know, I've heard doctors say, this virus is not racist, right? It is opportunistic. It is designed specifically for our people who are most vulnerable. And we know that Black and Brown people are most vulnerable, and our prisoners um, within these cells and the environment itself, knowing that the virus um, is very functional and very spreadable in closed spaces, right? And knowing that your immune systems have to be really strong in your lungs. But if you're
Yes.
inside your cell for 30, 24 out 23 hours a day, or only get out a few hours, if a few, an hour a week, depending on where you are. If you are confined in a space that's 6 by 8 with another person, and then right next door, there's it's the same thing. It's a breeding ground, an incubator for this virus, and it is impacting the health of our prisoners, our people, our community. Because let's be clear, just because we can't see people does not mean that they are not our community. You have to understand, if you remember these young brothers and sisters that were on the street, they are now behind the walls. Let's think about how many millions we have. Over 1.5 million Black and Brown prisoners in prison in the United States. We know that as they transfer these people around, it's the setup. The administration at San Quentin was very clear. They did not want to receive the infected prisoners. So this, um, the focus has got to be not only on the prisons themselves and the wardens. It has to be at a higher level at the CDC, the California Department of Corrections, at their administrative levels. It also has to be, we have to begin to organize around putting together demands around the care and treatment of the prisoners, and we have no idea, and it's coming out that the long-term impacts of this viral infection um, is devastating to the body and the mind and the emotions of some people. So we also need to be very aware that it's not just a, a short term. If you survive it, you just don't survive it and get over it like a cold. It's more like, I know I had pneumonia a couple years ago. Spread really easy. I gave somebody a ride. They sneezed. The next day, I was really ill for weeks. It came back 3 or 4 times. And I, thank goodness, had the ability to practice a level of self care where I survived it. But it was devastating to my lungs. And I was tired for months. And I was in decent shape. I can't imagine not being able to get sunlight, have access to herbs, fresh water, teas, soups,
Yeah,
love, and care,
yeah,
which is what is happening to our people behind the walls. I don't mean to go on a tangent, but we have to organize. It's not just about how they're caring for people, it's treatment afterward as well. And it's very important to focus on the care. They cannot just put people in an isolated room without providing them with the proper medicines and medications and treatment to survive this.
And preventive
I'm
yeah.
complete.
We can.
um, I'm sorry, but let me just add this real quick. So the prison guards are going to work. They're not taking the necessary precautions. Then they're going out in the community. So they're taking it to their family. They're going to the grocery store. They're going everywhere. So by them having their lack of regard for our loved ones, that's one thing, but they're taking it out in the community. And that's the piece that we have to get the community to understand. Like they're infecting the community. There's something, and this doesn't follow any, I work in healthcare. It doesn't have any, they can't say you have a fever, a temperature, because some people don't have a fever. Some people don't have any symptoms. The next thing you know, 2 days later, they can't breathe and they're gone from here. And there's an initiative now that once they put you on a ventilator, since they know that it is possibly impossible for them to extubate you, they are trying to say once you get to that point, that to just let you go. So the whole moral compass is changing, and there's I mean I can't even speculate as what the root of this is, but we have got to do something. Otherwise, we're going to look back and they're going to let them die, and I'm clear about that.
Yeah, talking about the way that they're sentencing the brothers now and sisters to die from this pandemic. They don't have access to things to build their immune system. They're selling the guards or the guards' families or families of the wardens are selling foods that are already prepared and heavily preserved. I mean, it's hard to get anything that's of quality for them to get, and you only get canned goods. You don't get really fresh things, or you get dried. I'm not sure. Haven't been into a prison, I think, since 2012. So I'm sure
Well,
it's
I've
changed
looked
a
at,
lot. Basically, now what we're doing is policies. We're working on policies. So you have to be like one of the district attorneys charged, Attorney Sally Soliday. You have to be the octopus. You have to have all these arms out doing various things to make the point. And the one thing that is very clear is that this country does not respect the human rights. This nation, this United States nation, our nation within a nation, we have been cut out of human rights. If there's something the world does, but with this present administration, they do not recognize human rights. And once you're in prison, they take your civil rights. When they want to prosecute you, they give you back your civil rights.
You know, one of the things that my dad made very clear to me is that the fight that we're in is also a class warfare. This is class warfare. And one of the things that we need to do is make life as miserable as possible for those who are controlling this class warfare. Here in Sacramento, I just participated in an uprising where we were outside of the warden's house here in Sacramento, or the guy that's over CDCR. Not quite sure exactly where I was. They told me to show up and I showed up. So, you know, make it, they shouldn't be allowed to go on as, you know, like everything is normal either. You know, we protested here at the governor's house on behalf of the prisoners. So on the outside, the least that we can do is, it's not going to kill us to make some phone calls. I got an email today. I think Charlie Hinton was in that email today asking us to make some phone calls to San Quentin, because the brothers in there and is being fed cold food out of the dirty, filthy kitchen or something. It took me a matter of a minute to make that phone call, And so somebody answered the phone. It's just a complaint. Imagine if they got a phone call a minute from all the family members that are on the outside about that. They might make some changes that we don't know, but we cannot just sit back and do nothing when they're letting them die. When we got statistics like 900 and something people already with COVID in one prison out of 3,000, that's too many. And we have to rise up on the outside because we are their voice, and we need to be just that until the changes come. We're in a class warfare, and we got to stay busy out here on the outside for them on the inside. They're dependent on us.
Thank you so much for those words. We want to try to honor everyone's time and not keep you too long. I would love for this to continue on, but we're going to have to cut this chop it up section short. But we greatly appreciate you, Mama Allegra, Mama McKinney, Mama Sukari, Mama Ayana. We appreciate you all taking this time to give us some of your afternoon, your evening with us. We will make sure for people who want to keep in touch in terms of the activism work that you're doing, we will be sure to put that information on the Black August Los Angeles calendar page and in the Black August Los Angeles group. I want to kick it over now to another member of Black August Los Angeles, Sister Virginia Harris, who wants to talk to us in the time that we have left about some of the work that we can do. What is this call to action? What are some things that we can do? And who are on behalf of these political prisoners that we have here in the state of California. So, Virginia.
Thank you, Tanda Seasway. And I also want to thank all the sisters who just spoke. They gave a good synopsis of the conditions of the comrades that are locked down. They also gave a good understanding of what political prisoner is, what it means to be a political prisoner, and people who have been railroaded because of their political beliefs or activities. California has the largest incarcerated population, and the United States has the largest incarcerated population in the whole world. The things that we can do have already been mentioned: calling the wardens, as Sister Allegra had mentioned, attending demonstrations, writing letters to the prisoners, because they sure need to be kept in touch with what's going on outside. Black August Los Angeles has a letter writing campaign. The addresses of the comrades that can be written to will be posted on our Black August calendar page on Facebook, so that information is available. Also, we have a slideshow that I don't think we're going to be able to show tonight, but on the slideshow, we'll make that available on the Black August calendar page also. And on that calendar page, you'll find information about the comrades and what their activities are right now, and what you can do to be involved. There's the slideshow.
Yes.
So the slideshow, the first the 4 slides after the beginning represent the four flea days and the comrades who are honored by Black August. And FLEE stands for First Liberation Expedition to Africa. The FLEE days are August 1st, Qatari Golden, August 7th, Jonathan Jackson, August 13th, which is W.L. Nolan, Cleveland Edwards, and Alvin Miller, and August 21st, which is George Jackson. Then the slideshow continues on with Hugo Pinell, who was, as has been mentioned, a great comrade of Qatari Golden and George Jackson, who was assassinated on August 12th 2015. And then it continues on with our California inmates who we've decided to focus on tonight because the comrades in our California state penal system don't seem to get the same focus as some of the more popular political prisoners such as Mumia Abu-Jamal or Leonard Peltier. So we wanted to focus on them tonight and let people know that even though they may not be household names that people readily recognize, they need our support and deserve our support just as much as any other of the political prisoners. We don't want them to be left out in the cold. We don't want them to be left out of sight and out of mind. So go to our website. You can see on the bottom of their slides, although it's too small, but it will be on our website, on our calendar page, to get their mailing information and write them to keep them in contact and connection with the community and with what you're doing, and they can keep us in contact with what they're doing. All power to the people. Free the land.
Thank you, Virginia. We apologize for not being able to show that in its entirety, but it will be available in the Black August Los Angeles group. It'll be available on the Black August Los Angeles calendar page in full. You won't have to rush through it. You'll get to see the names and learn some of the stories of who these brothers are, who stood with George Jackson, stood with Qatari Gaulden, and continue to stand tall in the California prisons in spite of the repression that has been meted out against them, in spite of still being held behind the walls in California. So again, I want to thank everyone. Thank Brother G2 for putting us in touch with Brother Hazim. We appreciate James Simmons, who usually does our tech. We're giving him a break. Appreciate Sister Taya, who stepped up, was dragged in, actually, coerced and roped into doing this. Brother Naeem, Brother Cameron, Brother Beto, Mama Asada, Sister Lake, everyone, Akosua, who does work with Black August Los Angeles. Unfortunately, Brother Harold Welton was having technical difficulties and we could not bring him in. But please check the Black August Los Angeles calendar page and the Black August Los Angeles group page for information on how you can support Ruchell McGee, the longest held political prisoner in California, in the U.S. We're trying to bring this brother home. We've got a petition campaign currently going. We're working on a freedom campaign to get him out of California prisons and bring him home amongst his people. So keep your eyes and ears peeled open for all of that information. So we're going to leave you now, even though it's 7:03. We were trying to get you out of here by 7. A few minutes afterwards, not going to hurt. But we do want to leave you with this final PowerPoint slideshow talking about the issue of political prisoners in general. Anytime you stand up against the state, you put yourself in their crosshairs as a target becomes on your back. Everyone is not able to do that. Everyone doesn't have to do that. But know and understand that anytime you go against unjust laws, anytime you stand up, you run the risk of becoming a political prisoner. So what you do after that says a lot about your character, says a lot about how you view our struggle. We believe in supporting to the best of our ability all those who take such a stand against injustice and evil. So understand that when you hear the names of Assata Shakur or Asundiata Okoli or Sekou Odinga, or Mutulu Shakur or Mumia Abu Jamal, you don't always have to do the type of work that they did. Sometimes people simply became targeted because they showed up at rallies. We've got political prisoners now because of that. And we're going to have some more political prisoners as we move into November. So the question becomes, what are you going to do? Are you going to continue to fight or are you going to fold? So let's go to that. Let's end on that slideshow presentation. My name is Tonda Cesare Shimaringa. This is Black August Los Angeles. Peace.